We will begin this round with the final recitation by the Central Regional Champion, Shakira Cross.
There Are Birds Here by Jamal May for Detroit. There are birds here. So many birds here is what I was trying to say when they said those birds were metaphors for what is trapped between buildings and buildings. No. The birds are here to root around for bread. The girls' hands tear and toss like confetti. No. I don't mean the bread is torn like cotton. I said confetti. And no, not the confetti a tank can make of a building. I mean the confetti a boy can't stop smiling about. And no, his smile isn't much like a skeleton at all. And no, his neighborhood is not like a war zone. I am trying to say his neighborhood is as tattered and feathered as anything else. As shadow, pierced by sun, and light, parted by shadow, dance as anything else. But they won't stop saying how lovely the ruins, how ruined the lovely children must be in that birdless city. Thank you.
We love knowing this project has longitudinal benefits for our students. Our next competitor could testify to that. She stated, "For me, poetry is a different way of seeing life, a way to describe experiences and feelings that call for more than simple speech. Poetry out loud honestly changed my life. It inspires me to write more of my own poetry because I get to explore so many styles and subject matters. Every year that I participate, I grow as an artist and poet." This is the last recitation from the Kansas City Regional Champion, Tempest Malone.
Beautiful Wreckage by W.D. Earhart. What if I didn't shoot the old lady running away from our patrol? Or the old man in the back of the head? Or the boy in the marketplace? Or what if the boy, but he didn't have a grenade? And the woman in Way didn't lie in the rain in the mortar pit with 7 Marines just for food. Gaffney didn't get hit in the knee. Ames didn't die in the river. Ski didn't die in a medevac chopper between Con Tien and Da Nang. In Vietnamese, Con Tien means place of angels. What if it really was, instead of the place of rotting sandbags, incoming heavy artillery, rats, and mud? What if the angels were Ames and Ski? or the lady, the man, and the boy. And they lifted Gaffney out of the mud and healed his shattered knee. What if none of it happened the way I said? Would it all be a lie? Would the wreckage be suddenly beautiful? Would the dead rise up and walk?
We know each of these participants devoted a good deal of time and energy to the memorization process. American poet John Hollander says, "We speak of memorizing as getting something by heart, which really means by head. But getting a poem or prose passage truly by heart implies getting it by mind and memory and understanding and delight." With Northeast's final poem, here's Kaiya Thompson.
Invitation to Love by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Come when the nights are bright with stars, or come when the moon is mellow. Come when the sun his golden bars drops on the hayfield yellow. Come in the twilight soft and gray, come in the night or come in the day. Come, O love, whenever you may, and you are welcome, welcome. You are sweet, O love, dear love, you are soft as a nesting dove. Come to my heart and bring it to rest as a bird flies home to its welcome nest. Come when my heart is full of grief, or when my heart is merry. Come with the falling of the leaf, or with the reddening cherry. Come when the year's first blossom blows. Come when the summer gleams and glows. Come in the winter's drifting snows, and you are welcome, welcome. Thank you.
When I surveyed students last week asking for their input on these remarks, our next student responded this way when asked to think metaphorically about poetry. A poem is a lighthouse in a time of need. A poet is a tidal wave that forms the land as his or her words form the people who experience his or her poem. For me, poetry is an anchor. It keeps me grounded, well-rounded, and never alone. The voices of poets alive and long gone keep me company among the crashing waves of the world. Here's the third poem by the Northwest Missouri champ, Aaliyah Smith.
Bleeding Heart by Carmen Jimenez Smith. My heart is bleeding. It bleeds upward and fills my mouth up with salt. It bleeds because of a city in ruins, the chair still warm from sister's body, because it will all be irreproducible. My heart bleeds because of baby bear not finding mama bear, and it bleeds to the tips of my fingers, like I painted my nails crimson. Sometimes it bleeds so much, I am a raisin. It bleeds until I am a quivering, ragged clot. Bleeds at the ending with the heroine in her sunken cancer eyes. At the ending with the plaintive flute over smoke, choked, killing fields. I'm bleeding a river of blood right now, and it's wearing a culvert in me for the blood. My heart rises up in me, becomes the cork of me, and I choke on it. It bleeds for you and for me and for the tiny babies in the IED blown leg. It bleeds because I'm made that way, all filled up with blood, my sloppy heart, a sponge filled with blood to squeeze onto any circumstance. Because it is mine, it will always bleed. My heart bled today. It bled onto the streets and the steps of City Hall. It bled in the pizza parlor with the useless jukebox. I've got so much blood to give inside and outside of any milieu, even for a bad zoning decision. I'll bleed so much you'll be bleeding, all of us bleeding, in and out, like it's breathing or kissing. And because it is righteous and terrible and red.
Remember how I said I was convinced this exercise makes us better thinkers? We teachers aspire to get students to synthesize and evaluate, construct and deconstruct, and apply their learning to real-life situations. In a Harvard Business Review blog recently, contributor John Coleman says he's written in the past about how business leaders should be readers, emphasizing poetry as a valuable genre. He quotes a business expert stating, "Poets are our original systems thinkers. They look at our most complex environments and they reduce the complexity to something we begin to understand." Today is certainly proof of that higher thinking, to be sure. With her last recitation, here's Bryce Jansen.
Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. Only from the long line of spray, where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen. You hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease and then again begin with tremulance cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind down the vast edges drear and naked shingle of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night.
If you're enjoying the performances today and would like to see more, poetryoutloud.org is a wonderful site to see video examples and hear audio examples of outstanding performances. There are teachers' guides and numerous resources, poetry materials accessible for all poetry lovers, not just teachers and students. You may find a few that you think you need to examine more carefully or memorize too. You can follow Poetry Out Loud on Twitter at Poetry Out Loud and at NEA Arts, hashtag POL18. I always feel old when I say hashtag. I sort of want to say number sign. But that wouldn't be cool at all, would it? It's now time for the third poem from Mary Ellen Witt, the Southwest Regional Champ.
Epitaph by Catherine Phillips.
on her son H.P. at St. Scythe's Church, where her body also lies interred. What on earth deserves our trust? Youth and beauty, both are dust. Long we gathering are with pain what one moment calls again. 7 years childless marriage past. A son is born at last. So exactly limbed and fair, full of good spirits, mien and air, as a long life promised. Yet, in less than 6 weeks, dead. Too promising, too great a mind, in so small room to be confined. Therefore, as fit in heaven to dwell, he quickly broke the prison shell. So the subtle alchemist can't, with Hermes' seal resist, the powerful spirit's subtler flight, but 'twill bid him long good night. And so the sun, if it arise half so glorious as his eyes, like this infant, takes a shroud, buried in a morning cloud.
The National Finals judging pool at Poetry Out Loud is a who's who of the artistic community. Famous poets, art critics, arts advocates, and other champions in and for the arts are there each year. This year, the 2018 Poetry Out Loud National Finals will be at the Lisner Auditorium at George Washington University, April 23rd through 25th. Admission is free and open to the public, and the contest will be webcast live. And one of these young women will represent our state at that contest next month. With her last recitation, here is Maggie Peranto.
Abecedarian, requiring further examination of Anglican seraphim subjugation of a wild Indian reservation, by Natalie Diaz. Angels don't come to the reservation. Bats, maybe, or owls, boxy, mottled things. Coyotes, too. They all mean the same thing, death. And death eats angels, I guess, because I haven't seen an angel fly through this valley, ever. Gabriel? Never heard of him. Know a guy named Gabe, though. He came through one powwow and stayed, typical Indian. Sure he had wings, jailbird that he was. He flies around in stolen cars. Wherever he stops, kids grow like gourds in women's bellies. Like I said, no Indian I've ever heard of has ever been or seen an angel. Maybe in a Christmas pageant or something. Nazarene Church holds one every December, organized by Pastor John's wife. It's no wonder Pastor John's son is the angel. Everyone knows angels are white. Quit bothering with angels, I say. They're no good for Indians. Remember what happened last time some white god came floating across the ocean? Truth is, there may be angels. But if there are angels up there, living on clouds or sitting on thrones across the sea, wearing velvet robes and golden rings, drinking whiskey from silver cups, we're better off if they stay rich and fat and ugly and zeckly where they are, in their own distant heavens. You better hope you never see angels on the res. If you do, they'll be marching you off to Zion or Oklahoma or some other hell they've mapped out for us.
Our next student reported this about Poetry Out Loud. Participating has been an honor, constantly diving into the raw poems and making myself a vessel for these unique narratives to flow through is a great experience. And by the time I finish reciting every poem, I hope that people walk away with a true understanding and admiration for these poets and their art. I think that hope is realized here today with her final recitation, St. Louis City's champion, Nyla Long.
The Mortician in San Francisco by Randall Mann. This may sound queer, but in 1985, I held the delicate hands of Dan White. I prepared him for burial. By then, Harvey Milk was made monument, no myth, by the years since he was shot. I remember when Harvey was shot, 20, and I knew I was queer. Those were the years. Levi's and leather jackets, holding hands on Castro Street, cheering for Harvey Milk. Elected on the same day as Dan White, I often wonder about Supervisor White, who fatally shot Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Milk, who was one of us, a Castro queer. May 21st, 1979, a jury hands down the sentence, 7 years. In truth, 5 years for ex-cop, ex-fireman Dan White. For the blood on his hands when he confessed that he had shot the mayor and the queer. A few men in blue cheered, and Harvey Milk? Why cry over spilled milk? Some wondered, semi-privately for years. It meant one less queer. The jurors turned to White. If just the mayor had been shot, Dan might have had trouble on his hands, but the 12 who held his life in their hands maybe didn't mind the death of Harvey Milk. Maybe the second murder offered him a shot at serving only a few years. In the end, he committed suicide, this Dan White. And he was made presentable by a queer. Thank you.
One of my favorite poets and a strong advocate for the Poetry Out Loud endeavor, former U.S. Poet Laureate Billy Collins, said this: "I'm absolutely in favor of having my students memorize poetry. Once they have the poem internalized, they're really proud. It's a gift. If it gets in there young, it stays." He went on to say, "My mother lived until 97, and she remembered poems she'd learned as a schoolgirl. We know these poems will be with us for a long while." It's now time for the final recitation of the contest. Here is St. Louis County's Ann Truca.
After the War by Rachel Galvin for Joseph Flum. When he got to the farmhouse, he rifled through the cabinets, drawers, and cupboards, and his buddies did too. The place was abandoned, or so he thought, and his buddies did too. He tried to talk to people in town, and his buddies did too, but he was the only one whose Yiddish made it across into German. They took his meaning. He, in the farmhouse, took a camera and a gun, but his buddies, who knows? About the gun, it's also hard to say. But after the war, he took up photography, why not, and shot beautiful women for years. Got pretty good at it, and how? Won prizes and engraved plates, put them in a drawer, forgot the war, forgot his buddies, forgot the women, forgot the drawer.
You've now heard all 3 poems from all 9 champions. We appreciate the wonderful work from our performers today, and we know these will be companion poems of yours for a long time. We're going to take another short break as the final scores are tabulated. Virginia, did you just tell me a full 10 minutes, or do you? About 10 minutes. Probably won't be quite 10 minutes, really. If you want to just stick around, if you need to leave the auditorium for a bit, just don't go too far. And we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes, maybe a bit less, as soon as we possibly can. At that time, we will announce the runner-up and the winner, and all of the competitors will receive their medals. Thank you again for your active listening and experiencing these poems, and thank you to the students for their recitations. A bit of a collective verse was constructed right here in front of us today, and through my experience with this project, I am always struck by the performances, sometimes by just a phrase or an image or a remembrance of something that comes about through the recitation, and I find myself surprised and moved and amused and sometimes devastated by the feelings I get from these poems. And through my good fortune in working with this project, I've always felt like it really is a gift that we are given, those of us that get to experience these poems brought to us by these young people. And I feel like we owe them a little bit more than just to line them up and give them a medal and tell them that we're really proud of what they've done, call one of them our runner-up, call one of them our champion, and send that student off to represent us in Washington, D.C. So today I took a bit of inspiration from the 6-word memoir idea. The first little book of 6-word memoirs that I had was called That's Not What I Was Expecting, I think is what it was called. And it was a collection of 6-word memoirs, some of which were moving and funny and sometimes devastating. And so I tried to keep my remarks today to 6 words as I reflected on what each of these young women gave us today. Shakira, smart examiner of more than words. Tempest, how are you, young, old soul? Kaiya, real storyteller, honors words of poets. Aaliyah, didn't just hear, saw these poems. Bryce, staccato stomp made me keep up. Mary Ellen, matter of fact, committed to text. Maggie, varied investigation, your recitation, levels explored. Nyla, honesty, sincerity, lyrical notes of meaning. Anne, sensory recall, true ownership of words. Thank you to each of these young women who gave us this gift today. Let's give them all a round of applause. Each competitor is going to be the recipient of a medal commemorating her achievement. I'll just let Michael present those to each of the students. First, Shakira Cross from Hickman High School. Next, Tempest Malone from Notre Dame de Sion High School. Kaiya Thompson from Troy Buchanan High School. Aaliyah Smith from St. Joseph Christian School. Bryce Jansen, Leopold High School. Mary Ellen Witt, Stockton High School. Maggie Peranto, Holt Senior High School. Nyla Long, Crossroads College Preparatory School. And Ann Truca, Parkway West High School. In advance, we wish congratulations to the 2018 Missouri State Champion who will represent us in Washington, D.C. next month, and all of these talented performers. Thank you to our judges, to our audience members, and to everyone who worked to make today happen. Guests who have RSVP'd for the lunch are invited to make their way to the DoubleTree for the 12:30 lunch that will follow the awards ceremony. Students, you'll stay up here on stage for just a bit of time, I think perhaps for some more photographs. Certainly the runner-up and the state champion will need to stick around before departing for lunch for just a bit of time to talk to Virginia and to Michael as they have some details that they need to get in your hands and some information from you. So you have your medals, and these are our top 9 champions. Now I invite you to help me in congratulating our runner-up and our Missouri State champion. The runner-up from St. Louis County, Ann Truca. And the 2018 Missouri State Poetry Out Loud champion representing us next month in Washington, D.C. is the Central Regional champion, Shakira Cross.